Movie news,
Yes!
rumors, and rumblings.
That's awesome!
Let the filibustering begin.
It was a movie weekend unlike any other. I mean, maybe literally. That's the topic of this episode of Mad About Movies as we discuss the weekend that was Barbenheimer 2023. We'll discuss the weekend here in this episode, the experience of going to see it, all the social media aspects of it. But we're also going to review Barbie in a separate episode. So if you want that, check the main feed. And Oppenheimer as well. But for the VIPs for a limited time. I want to say thank you to the people who support the show. So they get the first dibs at Oppenheimer. It will come out on the main feed at a date to be determined later. So check back. But it's Barbenheimer / Barbie Talk here on the main feed this week. And we have a special guest joining us for this conversation. Great friend of mine. You might know her work behind the scenes on such places as Conan O'Brien, maybe Best Week Ever, right? Maybe the Dallas Cowboys, the Miami Dolphins. She's the GOAT. Claudia Castillo.
Don't leave your MLS resume out.
And running the MLS, mind you.
Yeah.
Claudia Castillo.
What is up? I'm so happy to be joining the Mad About Movies crew. Thank you, Kent. That is the nicest introduction I may have ever gotten. So I appreciate all of you having me today.
She's the best. Can't wait to get your thoughts on Barbie because, you know, I was like, who can I ask to be on this episode that I know has seen the movie? I texted you and you were like, yep, seen it. I know you stay very plugged into this thing. You probably saw it before any of us did. So I'm sure you were hyped for it. But this was a crazy weekend, y'all. Brian, how was your screening experience for Barbie / Oppenheimer? What format? All that.
So Oppenheimer first. Got back from vacation late Wednesday night. Drove straight through 15 hours, which I don't super recommend at my age. Was good at about 10 hours, and the last bit I was like, this was stupid. This was a mistake. I saw Oppenheimer Thursday night at 10 o'clock. So I got home at 2. Haven't done that in a while either for a movie. Yeah, just 2 o'clock, I'm up a lot of times anyway. That's fine. It was all right, I got to be out with people until at least 1:30 and then get home and everything. But it was I always do this. I forget. We live in the Metroplex. There's 400 million theaters that we could go to and choose from. And so I very rarely buy tickets in advance. And I kind of just I'll get them when it's time. No big deal. And I always forget that it is impossible to get tickets to a real IMAX theater. And so I kind of put it off all vacation, got home. So Thursday, I was like, all right, I got to find a showing in IMAX, trying to do 70 millimeter if I can. Got to do that at some point this weekend. And I was striking out.
Underestimating how in demand
that's sold
this
out.
was,
That's sold out. There's only one, we have one of the, how many are there, Ken?
19.
30 in the whole world.
There's 30 in the world, and there's I think 2 in Texas,
Yep.
or 1 in Texas, maybe, and it's in Plano.
No, it's
for 70 millimeter IMAX, right?
Webb Chapel.
Yeah, it's right. It's like a block
by Barbie.
Yeah, it's like a block from me, and the other one's in San Antonio.
Yeah. So I of course looked there. No, it's sold out. It's sold out for the rest of time. I ended up at the Parks Mall at a 10 o'clock showing on a 70 millimeter IMAX. For that, and it was a packed house, and it was mostly a great crowd. It's not really like a crowd movie, but you just want everybody to shut up. There was one dude that kept getting out his phone and taking pictures, mostly when Florence Pugh was on screen.
You're talking about Barbie, right? You saw that 70 millimeter IMAX. You made sure.
Yeah. I tried, couldn't get tickets.
Yeah,
I
know. No. Same.
Oppenheimer 70 millimeter on Thursday night, and then Sunday.
Wait, somebody was really taking pictures of Florence Pugh?
Yeah, dude. It was
wow.
It was rough.
Why did you invite Tobin to the movie?
Yeah. Classic Tobin. Tubin, if you will. But the
hey, nice. That was great.
Got him. Perfect. Thanks. If only I could have kept talking after that. No, I had to laugh at my own little joke there.
Go a little. victory lap.
Then we went to see Barbie with my wife on Sunday evening, and that crowd ruled. It was packed house. Everybody was having a great time. Lots of pink dresses and boots, and I wore my Mad About Movies Greta Gang shirt, which I know you're not supposed to wear your own merch, but couldn't pass up the opportunity for this time around. And
now on sale at madaboutmoviespodcast.com
man.
store, the Greta Gang shirt, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was great weekend at the theater. It was awesome to be able to have 2 movies come out. I still don't understand the strategy really, but that's okay. It made for a great weekend for the sickos like us that were going to see both movies. And it was cool to see people excited to go to the movies, especially after this summer where it felt like every movie was a flop. So it was a fun time.
Very well said. Claudia, did you have to fight the New York crowds to get to this one?
Well, unlike Brian, like Brian, I did not see it in 70 millimeter IMAX as well, which is why I didn't have to fight the crowds. I also live in Queens, and so I knew that if I went to Manhattan to try and watch it, either of these movies there, I would be having a hard time. So I stayed in my neighborhood, very easy, bought it like an hour before I went to see both movies.
Yeah, I did days before on both, and I still was barely able to get a seat in time to do the episodes. But, hey, studios, slide in the DMs. They're open. If you want to hook up the screenings, we're all ears, and we'll get our episodes out as soon as we see them. I promise you. We'll make it worth it for both parties. Wink, wink.
Can I chime in? Didn't it feel reminiscent? I mean, you guys obviously watch a lot of movies. You're in the business of movie watching. Didn't it feel like for the first time in a long time, and even like pandemic aside, remember when we used to buy like the Entertainment Weekly summer movie guide? Like it felt like I was so excited to see both of these. And to your point, Kent, you guys have talked about other movies that were supposed to be big hits and just haven't really gotten there.
Yeah.
And these just like revived the box office.
I think that's a great point, and it's my main observation of the weekend is just how rare this was. It's you can't buy it. You can't. The marketing team can't say, "All right, $300 million, and we're going to do the Barbenheimer marketing campaign." Granted, Barbie had a great strategy with all the pink stuff they did, the tie-ins and all that. And I saw an interview with Variety that said, inside Barbie's marketing genius or whatever. I was like, oh, they're going to shed some light on this Barbenheimer trend. There was one question on it where they just acknowledged that it existed. Like, oh yeah, I've seen some of the memes. But they tried to credit like, oh, did you see the tie-in that we did with Flo from Progressive? Like they're trying to take credit for this because of this. Like you guys just don't get why this was so big. This thing took on an entire life of its own 4 months ago.
Totally organic. Oh, more
totally organic.
Like 18. They were talking about Barbieheimer like 18 months ago. like
Totally. But
you know what I mean? Like
the past 4 months,
people didn't think it would happen.
Yeah.
People kept just being like, this won't happen. One of them will move. That was like the whole thing. And then once it kind of get down to the wire of like, oh, this is actually going to be a thing, it became its own organic thing. It's not, I think it's not to be, the thing that's great about it is that it's organic, not to be negative. The thing that stinks about it is I don't think it's replicable. Right?
This is my. We need to realize, I've seen a lot of, directors have tweeted, cinema is back.
Yeah.
Granted, this was a great example of the power of cinema that can bring people together. But I agree, Richard. I think this is just such a rare instance. We've never seen anything like this in Mad About Movies history, with two movies that are so polar opposite in style and tone, but also not. When you kind of watch the movies, you're like, wow, these are kind of similar films in a weird way. And it had so many people bought into both. I just couldn't believe the actual amount of people that saw both of these. It blew my mind. I thought like, that's people are saying that on social media, but when it comes down to it, are you actually going to sit there for 5 hours on a Saturday in the summer and do this? And I was wrong. That was exactly what happened. This thing made a ton of money. This is the biggest opening weekend since Avengers Endgame. which opened at 357 million. By the way, for Avengers, I couldn't believe that number.
Jeez.
I looked back. I was like, I thought it was closer to like 200, 350. Freaking! I had to make sure I was on the right webpage.
And I'm not saying this negatively about those Marvel films at all, the later Avengers or whatever that did really well, but like, it never really felt like a movie thing. It felt like we're all going to go see this theme park ride. And I'm not doing the Scorsese thing where they're not cinema. They are, but I just mean like the hype of them felt like it's their own thing. It almost felt like
Didn't this feel like that though? In a way, like there was so much, so
like
little talk about
again.
the movies itself, and
Yeah, but
more
this felt
talk
like
about
going to
like
the
just
movies.
going to see this. Look at my outfit.
Yeah, but
you know,
it
that
felt
type of
I
thing.
thought Barbie had a little bit of that to it, but Oppenheimer, no, it was like we're going to see a film, and then you mix and Barbie had some of that as well. I think Barbie had a little blend of the theme park thing to me, which is great because I like all of that stuff. I'm not knocking
No,
it,
me
like,
either.
at all. But
I just want to finish, but like
yeah, the combination of it, I thought was more about movies and honestly, in filmmakers than it was about here's the cool ride that we're going to see, like Spider-Man or Avengers Endgame or even to some extent Maverick, but I think Endgame on a much obviously.
yeah,
much higher.
Maverick had a bit of that, but that also the thing about the Marvel things is that it felt like, again, not knocking it as not movies, but the feeling about it was more about like the last episode of Game of Thrones or something, because they're serialized to an extent with the kind of macro narrative. So much of that is like, I got to go see how this thing ends. It's like watching.
It's
I
all
happen
been
to
leading
have
to this. Yeah.
Yeah, I happen to have to go into this building to see it, but it didn't really feel like I'm going to the movies, at least for me, at least. And this had a different thing to it. But I live right by, and I would not have done this on my own. You guys know that. I live right by one of the two 70 millimeters, and it's sold out like through September already for Oppenheimer. But I have a neighbor that got us 2 tickets like a month and a half ago for Sunday morning. So I actually got to see it on that, which was, you guys, if they extend it, I think they're talking about their showtimes now in the mid to late September for you two, especially. You should make the effort.
Definitely have it on the list. I honestly wanted to do it that way. Didn't book the 70 millimeter in time, but booked a Dolby Vision version.
Nice.
Here locally. Nice. And saw some complaints. I don't know if you guys had any problems with the 70 millimeter, but I saw a lot of complaints online about the prints messing up, the sound, even in our Discord, saying the sound was out of sync for an entire scene, things like that. And so it made me feel okay about, I'm seeing a digital thing. At least I know it's not going to glitch out on me during the screening. So I was rest assured. It looked great. I mean, it still looked fantastic. And the sound was unbelievable for Oppenheimer. I don't want to get into spoilers because we're going to do an episode, but the sound for the Dolby Vision, I mean, you sit on the back row in that thing, and it's like the 4D seat shaking type experience. Like you're like, wow, this is making quite a difference.
Yeah.
So that was great.
Explosion.
But I want Claudia's thoughts on like the fact that this was such an event online. I mean, once the Pink Floyd "Wish You Were Here" meme came out, like that thing was used more than any advertising for these movies. I saw that thing on every news website, the Barbie shaking Oppenheimer's hand in the movie studio Photoshop thing. That was everywhere. It's like, you can't buy that. But there was such a big crowd of people. How much do you think of the success of both of these movies this weekend had to do with the fact that like how big of the audience went to this just because they wanted to be in on the conversation? And like on a normal weekend, they wouldn't go see Oppenheimer or Barbie on opening weekend, but because this was such a huge social event, they went and saw them.
I think a bit with Barbie, because even for me, I movie drafted it. I expected to kick Oppenheimer's butt at the box office. Maybe there were people that got caught into that. Not that there's not a ton of diehard fans for it as well, but maybe Oppenheimer, like when you really factor in how much the IMAX tickets are and how that was like 49% of the overall box office, like it did fine. I mean, it did great. But
yeah,
like, I feel like people were like going to Oppenheimer more on, it was like the fans that were going to see it, and Barbie, to its credit, got all the fans that were going to see it, and I think a lot of like adjunct people as well, which is what movies like. That's not a diss. That's how they should work.
Isn't that a big misfire to not have it in more locations?
Yeah, the Tom Cruise of it all too. Like MI7 was out everywhere still, and even after that disappointing first week, he really had lobbied to get premium screens for. I mean, that was like a weird miss that he was involved in, and then then they ended up losing The Sound of Freedom. So like that was a big fat fail, which is rare from Cruise. But yeah, Barbie will. But yeah, I think Barbie was more of like a much bigger cultural moment, I think, for sure, which is cool. Great week for Pink. We got Messi, we got Barbie. Like, we are back. T-Mobile.
My timeline has been flooded with Pink.
I mean, like
T-Mobile
I said, this is
like give away free phones and we're set.
It's maybe the most quote unquote online movie I've ever seen come across. I mean, it's just everywhere you look. And
like,
Claudia, what do you think about that,
movies.
though?
Like, it's just so memeable.
What percentage of the audience do you think was just along for the ride of, I need to be in on this conversation, the FOMO, I can't go into the office on Monday without having seen one of these, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I know that being back in the office for me, my coworkers and I had already talked about what movies we were going to try and go see. And so, I joke, and I think you guys, your region aside, are part of like the quote coastal elites that like both of these movies appeal to. True. I mean, the Venn diagram is there, but I think, the pie is just a lot larger for Barbie, like you guys mentioned already, because of the IP. It's not exactly a comic book, but it's something that has existed for 60 years that, generations of people have been familiar with.
More
Even
people
if you
have
don't
played
buy
with
your kid a Barbie, like one finds its way into your house one way or the other. Someone will buy one as a gift. And so that, along with like the Pink of it all, it doesn't even matter. It's just, it was a cultural moment. It was a cultural event. It was a reason for, similar to like the Taylor Swift Eras tour, like giving women a reason to like dress up for, $500 cheaper and have a night out with their friends, or, mothers to take their daughters, or roommates to go, or whatever. And I think also, just because it was a Greta Gerwig movie, then you have film buffs like you guys that want to go see this movie. I mean, you would probably cover it anyway, but it was intriguing because of the Greta Gerwig of it all. And so I think that's another reason both of these movies dominated, even over Mission Impossible. And Tom Cruise is begging us to go back to the movies. And this is, again, IP aside, these were original stories. And I don't think we've gotten that in a long time.
No, totally.
When to Cruise's credit, when he went on the red carpet and said, let's make a weekend of it, I'm going to do it, that's when it was fully cemented, like, oh, this is a thing now. For me, it was when Cruise is endorsing, let's have a Barbenheimer weekend. I mean, that might have gotten some people's eyes turned around that direction. I heard, I don't know who reported this, but I heard that Oppenheimer made $5 million from people who couldn't see Barbie because it was sold out. So they went and saw Oppenheimer instead.
That's a hilarious thing to think about. People in like pink flamingo.
Right.
But I've heard about this other. This is the other part of the meme, right? Let's do that one. Of all the other movies that are out that might appeal to that sense, Oppenheimer is definitely not the one. But hey, go see a good movie if you're going to go see one, right? So,
and Nolan has a weird. I mean, I to be honest, I mean, I guess there's the Batman part of it, but Nolan has an incredible, in Inception and all of these. But those Inception's 13 years ago, Interstellar. But he people that don't follow movies, like he's the one director they know now of this generation. Right. So while so people will go see. He's. I mean, that movie's pretty talky for a July. Now there's some big stuff in it that warrants the IMAX and all of that, but like people, we've talked about it. People probably don't sit through that at $180 million of gross for Spielberg, even at this point. I mean, he couldn't. West Side Story couldn't do that. So it's like an interesting thing that no one has this very unique pull at this moment in time. That is It's not like, I mean, he really walks the line great between like kind of movies that are shooting for, you know, awards recognition and box office receipts. He does that very well, but it's always kind of amazing to me. You know, I talk to people all the time, like, you know, not to be a jerk, but like, you know, you meet someone at a party and their cultural taste is pretty dumb. Like they're not seeing a whole lot of stuff, but they saw Dunkirk and you're like, really? Like, okay, that one got to you. Like, cool. I mean, that's great, but like that doesn't like wash itself into where they also went and saw, you know, 1917 or what, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't bleed out of that Nolan verse. People just really like his style. And I think that's, and the fact that he made that for 100 million, you talk about that. We were talking about that with Indiana Jones, which obviously there's COVID delays and things like that. But it's like, just don't make movies 300 million. And then when you make 180 opening weekend, it's a pretty nice, it can be done. You can make a big blockbuster movie for $100 million. It's okay.
Well, the other thing too is like Nolan is famously known for just like doing everything on a very tight timeline.
I can't believe he did that in like 58 days, right, Claudia? Can you believe that?
I read like 58
Good grief,
days.
that's
like,
unbelievable.
3 months of like pre-production, 3 months of post. Like that movie was said and done in like 9 months.
Good grief, that's amazing.
Unbelievable.
And the fact that why it is that way, and we'll get into this more in our Oppenheimer episode, is he shot it all for real. You know, so when you eliminate no CG in the movie, that's a lot of money spent.
Absolutely.
In these blockbusters. You know, I would say majority of Indiana Jones is probably spent on sets and CG. So when you're shooting in the middle of New Mexico, you have a limited set and you do it all for real with real fire. You can create. I think that makes a huge difference.
He's cool about this, which I don't know if I would be. I wouldn't pull that curtain back. But Brian, have you seen any of this where like he's like, yeah, you can do CG and you can do it in person, but I do a ton with miniatures. And you're like, well, I think about that. That's real cheap. Like, you mean you're shooting?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Like, we haven't thought about that in 30 years. You can just do miniatures. And it's like, yeah, we just blow up little stuff. We're like, oh,
you
cool.
blow. You put a small house in front of it, and you can make the explosion look 10 times bigger, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just it's funny. Like, we talk about the business of movies a lot here, and I mean, I love talking about that with you guys. I'm sure there are listeners who are like, just review the movie, but to me, this is all really interesting stuff, because I think it's important to me. I feel like for us to try to say like, here's the lesson that can be learned from this weekend or from a disastrous weekend or, you know, disastrous premiere or whatever. But we've said so many times over the last few months, like, hey, part of the process of making a movie now needs to be like, we are exiting the period where not only was there rampant spending, like it was encouraged, it's like almost required. Like we have to spend $250 million to make this movie or else it's going to die. And now I feel like one of the lessons that needs to be taken from not just this weekend, but like from the summer as a whole is like, stop. We gotta find ways to stop spending $250 or $300 million on every movie. Like some of this stuff has to change. And then you see Nolan, it's like this movie, Oppenheimer, was $100 million. Looks like $300 million. It's just incredible looking movie. And then he says things like that, and you're like, right. Remember, I'm not dissing CGI and VFX or any of that stuff. All of that is really impressive, and it's incredible what we can do. But it was
designed to be cheaper
with a computer now. Yeah, but like also, it's cool to do practical too. Yeah. Like I love that you're going to return, and I'm not saying you need to do every scene with miniatures, obviously, but like, yeah, if you can figure out ways to do this and have it look like this instead of doing it the way where, you know, 30 VFX artists are like working 23 hours a day and are, you know, just miserable, and then it still looks like The Flash, then, you know, maybe we got to look ourselves in the mirror and say, hey, remember why I fell in love with filmmaking? Well, maybe we need to do some of that stuff.
You can feel the danger of it more when it's practical.
Yeah, totally.
And I think another factor that kept the budget low was, I'm willing to bet most actors will take a discount to work with Christopher Nolan.
Oh, yeah.
So you get
That helps.
You know, the Rami Maleks and Matt Damons and Florence Pughs of the world that
Gary
are
Oldman.
Yeah.
right, that are high in demand. Right. You can get them probably for anything. It's just like, all right, as long as I'm making money, I'll do this. Like SAG minimum or whatever it is.
Aiden and/or Ansel. There's no way to know which one that was.
Ansel Elgort.
You cannot Google it. There's no.
I think it was Ansel Elgort.
There's no way to know.
Thought that was Dylan McDermott personally, but maybe I'm wrong.
David Duchovny. Dermot Mulroney.
Dermot Mulroney would have been good at
He would have been great in Oppenheimer. Would he not? Gosh.
Actually, yeah.
And that's a miss there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Big miss with no Dermot Mulroney. So let's go over the financials. So Barbie on opening weekend made 162. Oppenheimer 82. And so worldwide so far, Barbie's made 382 and Oppenheimer 190. Also, yesterday, as we're recording this, was Warner Brothers' biggest day ever for a movie.
Wow.
With 26 million for Barbie, which is when I went and saw it, and it was quite packed still. It felt like the weekend. I think somebody in our Discord said this, that it hasn't felt like this at the cinema since Endgame.
Yeah. The
last time I remember it just being bonkers, I think for like a month straight, was Force Awakens, where you just couldn't drive by the theater. The parking lot was packed for a solid month. So what do you guys think will be the legs of this?
That or a man.
I'm sure it'll have another great weekend. But what do you think at the end of the day will be the fate of both of these movies and this weekend?
I think
Brian?
Barbie's got some legs, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think these are I just gotta say, like, I would have had the numbers on that like at about half. Like if you would have asked me up to the week maybe before the movies came out, I would have said I think probably Oppenheimer 40 million, Barbie 70 to 80 million, and I think both studios would have been thrilled with those numbers. So for them to come in literally double that it's pretty daggum impressive. And to have them sort of competing against you. I mean, I know that that's like part of the that ends up being a positive of this story, is like it's just a great weekend at the movies, and a lot of people went to see both. And you know, even the people who were involved, or again, Cruise, whose own movie is kind of getting wrecked by this in a way. Like everybody is just excited about the cinema again.
Also, by the way,
let's all go to the movies and
they're
stuff.
both good.
But they could have gone the other way. Like it could have we could have had stories on Monday about how two big movies cannibalized each other essentially at the box office. And so, yeah, I mean, I would say I think both of these movies are going to do very well.
They both lifted each other up, unlike anything else. Yeah. I mean, and
especially going into the dark months of I mean, August, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I think is going to be a pretty big hit. It seems like there's a few other little movies that are going to do okay, but September is usually awful. It doesn't look great right now looking at the schedule, and August is a little weak. So I think that we're likely to have some of those weeks where it's like, oh, Barbie jumped back to number one in the US, and we're going to be talking about these two movies a lot over the next couple of months. And then Oscar season is going to come around, and I mean, one of these movies for sure is a major contender across all categories, and the other one I think has a couple of categories where it's almost a lock and maybe gets more over the, Barbie is a movie that feels like it could get more awards buzz. Like the early talk will be about Killers of the Flower Moon and Oppenheimer and a couple of others. And then somewhere in there, people will be like, but don't rule out
there'll
Barbie
definitely be the think piece
picture,
that's like,
director,
why isn't
etc.
Barbie getting considered for everything?
Yes, 100%. Yeah. So these movies we're going to be talking about a lot over the rest of this year.
The Killers of the Flower Moon trailer is so good, by the way. Oh my gosh. In the theater.
But you guys are talking about that like it's a lock, which it probably is without having seen anything. I actually think Barbie will absolutely shock everyone with the number of nominations it gets.
With you. Yeah,
I can definitely see that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I can.
I mean, it has Noah Baumbach and Greta Gerwig, plus she directed it, plus the music. Right. I mean, I know we're going to talk about it later, but I think across many categories.
Production
Gosling's a
design,
lot,
it's
too.
going to be
Yeah.
a shoe-in
Yeah.
for
Costumes.
The only
makeup
thing I
and
would say to that,
hairstyling.
Claudia, and you're absolutely right in a vacuum, but like two things that I would counter that. I agree with you, but two things I'm playing devil's advocate. One, I think we're going to have a pretty monster, like awardsy type year because you have Maestro, you have Flower Moon, you have a bunch of stuff. But two, it's like they're so stupid. Like it's just like just because it's about a Barbie, they'll like that will like
They'll
sometimes
minimize it,
discount
yeah.
all the rest of the like actual Academy Award nomination type talent that's involved because they're like, well, it's Mattel. The Academy's gotten
Mhm.
better about that over the last 10 years, but it's still a
Listen, I
fact.
would have said the same thing about Top Gun Maverick last year.
I totally
I
with
was
you.
like, it's the same movie from 1986, yet it got nominated for Best Picture.
Fair, but there was also the thing of like this saved the box office, so we're gonna like pay tribute to
So
it. There might be that.
Couldn't
with
we
Barbie.
make that argument for Barbie?
Totally, but it's not an original argument this year. Is my point. I'm with you. I'm just saying. My point is not that I'm arguing with you. My point is that the Academy is a fickle, stupid body.
No,
That-
I love the devil's advocate
Yeah.
argument. I totally get it, but I just don't see with the way that it's going.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm
you
with
guys are talking about box office. Like, I was thinking just from a female perspective, like the last time my friends and I went to go see movies multiple times was like Sex in the City and Bridesmaids. And
Yeah.
like those movies only grossed, and Bridesmaids, I think, was an August movie. Like those movies grossed 300 to 400 million
Yeah.
worldwide. Like Barbie is
Sure.
almost there,
Yeah,
and
it's
it's been
there.
out for 5 days
Yeah.
as of this recording.
it's
That is,
past 400 million. It could sign Jaylen Brown at this point, but it'll do. It's gonna have great. I think Oppenheimer will have obvious legs because, not to the level of Barbie,
For
but
all the obvious
right,
reasons.
because
Yes.
people go whatever. That has a slow rolling crowd, but I think people will be pretty surprised at, and then people start bringing their kids, and
Mhm.
they didn't want to bring the kids. I think Barbie could do like we could be looking at this as $1 billion movie in like 3 weeks very easily. Maybe not 3 weeks, maybe 5 weeks.
Wow, that'd be amazing. That'd be pretty awesome. Yeah, I think it benefits from a lot of things. You got a great director and also that brand recognition. So you've
Margot
got kind
Robbie
of
and
both
Ryan Gosling
the
are
film
movie stars, too.
the film nerd crowd it appeals to from
Yeah.
just the people involved, and then the average person from the IP. It draws both of those crowds in. And I really do think that both of these movies lifted each other up. Like if Oppenheimer was the only thing releasing last weekend other than like Ruby Gilman Teenage Kraken, let's say that was the other new release, right? I think Oppenheimer makes 50 to 60 million, right? I honestly think that this weekend was just so unique and
I
so many
agree.
people were out that it just overwhelmed both theaters. Like if I don't see this now, I will be lost for the next 6 months culturally. Like it
And
really
I did not
felt
see
like
that coming
that.
6 months ago for sure. I was the one saying like Oppenheimer should move, not Barbie. I was like, Barbie's you could tell immediately once those teasers.
Yeah.
It's this is going to be a huge thing. This is the perfect tone. This is going to crush
Yeah.
I was getting from, texts from total bros that wouldn't, I'd love to follow up with them, see what they thought of it. But like Barbie looks sick, And so I'm like, this is
Right.
going to absolutely smash. And then I was like, oh, but you're absolutely right. Can't like that. I think if it was just like a random, it's the only movie out this weekend, it's a World War II drama with a bomb in it. Like, I don't know what it does. I mean, Nolan, we talked about Nolan.
Yeah.
That's a unique thing for sure. But like, I don't know. I think you're right. I think they were brilliant. I think it was an accident, but I think they were brilliant to have it out this week. I really think
to embrace it.
The rising tides thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, what a weekend it was. We're going to dive into Barbie talk here on the Made feed. If you've seen that movie, make sure and check out that episode. And we'll get Oppenheimer talk in for the VIPs this week as well. So check that out, Oppenheimer fans. But if you want to support us, madaboutmoviespodcast.com/VIP for all those bonus episodes. And we've got merch too. Greta Gang merch, Oppenheimer, I Hardly Know Her t-shirt as well. So check that out. Madaboutmoviespodcast.com.
It's actually been
Click on
selling
store.
too, which
Yeah.
is great.
If you're for some reason, a person that bought that and listens to the show, please tweet a picture at the screening, because multiple people bought that shirt and we have no idea who it was, but some legends out there.
And we want you to wear it to family Thanksgiving.
We're watching Oppenheimer with that shirt and we want to see it. All right, Claudia, thanks for being here. Thanks for listening, Man Fam, and we'll see you soon at the cinema. Goodbye.